Hello and welcome to the Team VVV podcast for all your weekly racing game rambles. I'm Martin and joining me as ever is Kevin.
Hi guys.
And Alan.
Hello viewers.
If you enjoyed the podcast, as usual, do give us a quick like and subscribe. It really helps support what we do. This week we are giving away a download code for the Chaotic Combat Racer Blaze Rush on PS4. So do check out the website for more details on that. So 2017 is looking like a landmark year, really, for racing games. There's lots of big and small releases to look forward to. So we thought we'd talk about some of the upcoming releases we're looking forward to most. But first, I want to draw your attention to our new community section on the website. From time to time, we're going to be posting community screenshots and videos and things like that. So if there's anything you find that you think is worth featuring, do get in touch with us. So if you go on there right now, you'll see we posted a news article about a Forza fan who basically paid tribute to several iconic racing games like Outrun, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Burnout, and other series that we haven't really seen for a long time. And I've got to say, I think it's probably the best use of a game photo mode I've ever seen.
Yeah, so these are all... Sorry, yeah, these are all in-game from Forza Horizon 3, is it?
Well, I think he's done a few effects here and there to touch it up. He's added the game logos and stuff like that. But yeah, he really captured, I think, the vibe of each series. So, he made like custom liveries, for example, to match the cars in the other series and things like that. It's really well done, I think.
It showcases the range of environments, doesn't it, in Forza Horizon 3, that it can actually go onto one game and create all these different images that are vastly different from one another and capture, like you say, the essence of the game. So, it's a credit to the environmental scope, isn't it, of Forza Horizon 3.
It's funny because I must admit, when playing Forza Horizon 3, I do get kind of flashbacks to some of those games, like Motorstorm, and games like that, and Burnout Paradise. Yeah. So I think it really kind of proves that Forza Horizon 3 itself is almost like a tribute to old school arcade races.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you start off with the main car from any given game. Then you think about what would be a core of that environment. And there's so many cliches, if you like, that are in there. And then you just find that environment and whack a logo on, a bit of extra color, and you've become that game. But it shows how, if a good example is the PGR4 screenshot. You've got the big arrows for the corner. And it all feels very PGR, like you say, there's a Burnout screenshot in the city area. It looks very Burnout.
Yeah.
And of course, Dirt 3 goes without saying.
It doesn't take a lot, does it, to give you that impression of a game, because your mind sort of fills in the blanks. You see Driver, for instance, you see the boxes flying everywhere.
Driver.
I
was going to mention the Driver one, yeah. Unsurprisingly, that's my favourite one. But again, I think he really captured the essence of that game. You got a muscle car. It's sort of faded out a bit to give it this sort of dirty 1970s look.
Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal job. I mean, I think it's fair to say that guy is a racing game fanatic. He is one of us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great to see the passion.
In the future, we hope to highlight more community creations like this. So do keep checking out the new community section on the website.
It'd be great to see a new selection of videos. And actually, as you're talking about that, we should probably create a forum thread so that people can post in the forum if they find stuff of interest. We'll set up a thread and then obviously register for the forum, post the stuff of interest, and we'll consider that for the community area. We'll whack a link below the video as well.
Yeah, and otherwise you can obviously contact us in the usual way by email, etc. It's all on the website. It's definitely a section we want to grow and really make something for the community. So watch this space. Anyway, so moving on, I think, to some racing game news now. Assetto Corsa console players will be very pleased to know that the Red Pack and Porsche Pack Volume 2 is finally out, and about time too. I think what's more interesting, though, is the developer team has posted a new screenshot of an upcoming track, which looks quite promising. It's a new road course set in Scotland.
Yeah, and very like Drive Club, you know.
I was about to say just that. Yeah, I wonder what the developers of Drive Club think of that.
Do you know, I've got a sneaky suspicion that they're toying around with open world environments and fictional environments for a future title. I've just got a sneaky suspicion that something's going on there. There's an effort, a focus that's different from Assetto Corsa, and you know, it'd be interesting if we see more and more of these sort of fictional tracks. I wouldn't be surprised, put it that way.
Yeah, I like it when they add more fictional tracks because obviously it allows the developers to be a bit more creative.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the screenshots on the website. You could see the third screenshot down in the RBAF 595, and it really sort of captures that sort of town look, doesn't it? And it looks so realistic, and you know, there's plenty of life around. As you've got all your lampposts, you've got all your vehicles and bits and pieces, and you know, it looks authentic, and it just adds character to the game, which, you know, racetracks don't really have much character, unfortunately.
No.
You got your iconic racing circuits, of course, but you know, it's nice to have a mix, and that's probably why I enjoyed Ride 2 so much, because it had these sort of street circuits, and you know, it really does add character and believability and danger as well to the proceedings. You know, it adds something special to a game, and you know, games like Project Goth and Racing and things like that are very enjoyable because of these sort of street circuits, and we need more of it. Basically, it seems to be one of those things that's going away in recent years, and we just need more.
So you get to a point sometimes where every racing game basically has the same tracks. It's just licensed racing circuits. We've done that dozens and dozens of times before.
You need a combination. I mean, Gran Turismo, one of its strengths was it has like real world circuits or custom created circuits, and when you've got some good circuit designers, you know, I mean, Forza Motorsport, you know, have, if you look at their history, some wonderful created tracks that they've done themselves, and add so much to it. So it's nice to have that bit of balance there. I'll just highlight something actually, because I haven't had a chance to test the new. I don't have a season pass for Assetto Corsa, so I haven't had a chance to test the new pack. But I just you know, bit of feedback. I noticed a post on NeoGAF where a user on there, Dana Watt, says the title update does nothing apart from adding DLC support. So no control functions of hybrid cars, still woefully limited, and there is no custom button mapping still, no custom championships like the PC version has, limited 2015 F1 setups, and no special events for any of the new cars, despite the PC version having them. Someone says also you can't adjust stuff like the rear aero on the F1 Ferraris or the drivetrain on one of the cars. So so it seems like there's still a few issues with the pack, and that tells me, as a console player talking on a forum, the disgruntlement that they're seeing what the PC gamers are having and saying, well, why aren't we getting this as well? So it's progress to see the new packs being added, but it still does seem like that you know, Kunos are fighting against the clock in terms of trying to bring the game up to scratch there. But it is nice to see that they're creating these new circuits as well, you know. And you know, let's hope that we see some more investment into the title as it continues to evolve.
I mean, the way things are going, you know, the console versions are always going to be behind the PC versions, and you know, a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you know, updates you know, cost money. They take a while to implement through, you know, the consoles, Microsoft and Sony approval systems, and I don't know. It's I don't believe that. I mean, they came out and said that they'll develop them all equally. You know, they shouldn't have said that, because it was never really going to be possible, I don't think so.
No, I mean, we've said it before. I think they basically underestimated how much work was involved in converting it to consoles severely.
Yeah,
it does seem
that's the problem.
Doesn't it? They've definitely been.
They've been so solely focused on PC development for, you know, since they begun, basically, with all their titles. They just didn't really take into account the fact that, you know, the console players are a very different audience with very different expectations to the PC crowd.
I mean, it's not you know, unreasonable to actually have expectations for a game that's roughly on par with the PC version, and unfortunately, it's not. So that's why people are up in arms, and it's understandable, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. It's not a great situation, really, and it's that they seem to be struggling to recover from it.
Yeah, they're playing catch up forever, aren't they now? And yeah, it's such a shame. I mean, I wish them well, but Yeah, they perhaps shouldn't have come out and actually said that they're going to develop them equally, because it has sort of come back to bite them in the backside, unfortunately.
Yeah, they did shoot themselves in the foot when they said that, didn't they?
Yeah. It's a learning process, isn't it? Because like you say before, they've been concentrating on the PC version. The consoles is very much a new avenue for them. So it's all a learning process at the moment. They can only get better.
I was going to say, I'm sure they've learned a lot from this experience for the future. If they do indeed make another game,
Let's hope let's not put them off future titles and for the PS5 and Xbox 2 or whatever you want to call it. And I hope they can get through this sort of period and come out the other side.
It does make you wonder what they'll do next, really.
Yep.
Whether they'll keep building on Assetto Corsa or just start a new project entirely.
I think at the moment they're going to keep building on Assetto Corsa. I get the feeling that they're still going to be focused on it for at least another 18 months, at least.
Probably.
And I think
they seem passionate about that project.
Significant. They will keep supporting it. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that they're so passionate about that project. I don't think they could ever let it go.
No. So it will continue for at least a couple of years. Yeah, I think. And who knows? I mean, it might really come along even on console. We might look at it a bit like Drive Club, in a year from now, and say, look at the transformation in it. If only they had launched with that. But we'll just have to wait and see. At the moment, there's still quite a long way to go for them. So clearly, they're backs to the wall in terms of, and they're just trying to keep that content coming, keep those fixes coming, and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't envy them. Put it that way.
No. It's a bit of an uphill struggle, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, in other DLC news, Ride 2 has a new bike pack. It's called the Rising Sun Pack, and it adds 6 new bikes, all from Japan. So you get bikes from the likes of Yamaha, Honda, and Kawasaki. Again, it's great to see Milestone really stick to their promise, I guess, and actually supporting Ride 2, which is something they didn't do very well on the last game, it has to be said.
Yeah, so they've done double whammy, haven't they? They've come out with a cracking game, and they've also great post-release support. So it's going in such the right direction. I'm very happy for Milestone and the fans. They've finally got a game that they've been longing for, and it can only go from strength to strength from here. And it's going to be supported up until April, I believe. So. Fantastic.
It's on a par with Forza, isn't it, really, in terms of their post-release support?
Yeah, exactly. It's a pack every month and a free pack as well every month. So it might even be better than Forza. So.
That is true, yeah. I'm just waiting to see what they come up with to outdo the radio control car pack for Valentino Rossi.
I don't know if they can outdo it. It was such a legendary piece of DLC. I
would love to know their mindset when they worked on that one.
Yeah.
Funny, I mean, I love its quirkiness, but the fact that it was part of a paid DLC, that was the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
It was free content. We'd laugh at it, and we think it was great and move on. But yeah, the fact that it was part of the season pass content, it's
just so unbelievably random.
Yeah.
I can't see it working in Ride 2 though myself, something like that. No, that's I can't really think of anything, to be honest. But I mean, yeah, they've got plans then up until April, which is very similar to Forza, where you get a new pack every month. And we look forward to seeing what comes next.
Yeah. Before we go, there's also the free Bikes Pack free, which is going to be next week. So that'll be 2 new free bikes as well. So there's that to bear in mind as well.
I just hope they bring a few more vintage bikes. I think that's the only thing Ride 2 is really lacking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, the bike list, for the most part, doesn't really stretch beyond 1985, I think, or something like that. It's all focus is very much on modern machines, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the majority of people want the modern stuff, but there's going to be always a market for the older stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just hope Ride 3 sort of accommodates more the classic bikes, because it's fantastic stuff, isn't it? And they all have their own distinct sort of look, and it's I love just seeing the way things have evolved in vehicles over the years, because they all have a certain look, don't they? You can place them in a certain era just by looking at them, and it's fascinating to see that. And it's like it's getting on to sort of Gran Turismo levels of vehicles now. So it could become the sort of bike museum of games. Ride 3 and beyond. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is really the tourist trophy of its time, really.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Will Polyphony ever get back to doing bikes? Probably not, judging from their schedule at the moment, but
they are. I mean, they're so slow, aren't they, at getting their job done? That I think we'll be waiting for another few years. You know, at this rate. So I mean, it's a shame, isn't it? I mean, that because you think so much work went into modelling and bringing that game together, and yet nothing was made of it. Nothing was kept. You know,
I remember when was it Gran Turismo HD was announced, and they had screenshots of bikes in it.
Right.
Not long after Tourist Trophy came out.
Oh, I can't remember those, but I remember Gran Turismo 2000. They showed Chicago with new sun lighting effects. That was the first thing they showed, and it was, it was impressive stuff. But of course, then that got delayed by another year, didn't it? So that came out later at the time. And I mean, if you think about '98, they released Gran Turismo 2. They released Omega Boost. They released something else, as well. So I can't remember what it is now. So the studio was busy with stuff. That was Tourist Trophy a couple of years later, along with the Gran Turismo again the year before. So I mean, they were getting titles out the door, and I don't know what happened, but then they didn't make another game after a Mega Boost type thing. I love the Mega Boost. If you haven't seen it, it's a big flying robot with a big gun blowing stuff up, and it's brilliant. It was amazing on the PS1. Really hard, awesome control, amazing music. Wow. Yeah, a Mega Boost.
Yeah, that should be your next retro video, I reckon.
It should be, isn't it? Polyphony gameplay. Big robots and big guns.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if they made a sequel to that out of the blue.
Yeah.
This is why GT4 was delayed.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. I mean, they do a VR version or something. Wow. No, not going to happen. I've spoken to Kazunori a few times, and he really doesn't like to talk about video games anymore. He talks about cars, real cars. That's about it. He doesn't really like to talk about video games in any way, shape, or form. So even his own games doesn't feel comfortable talking about them. Everything is Gran Turismo and cars. So there won't be any of that other nonsense.
That's a shame. Right, back to more racing game news then. This is quite a pleasant surprise. You may remember just recently the release of Aqua Motor Racing. It was a water racing game. Something we don't really see a lot of at the moment, it has to be said. But anyway, the developer has announced a new game in development in a similar vein. This time set on the snow, in a very imaginatively titled Snow Motor Racing Freedom. It's on It's on Steam Greenlight right now. So obviously do support that if you're interested. It did make me think though, when was the last time we saw a good snow racing game? And Blizzard Mountain doesn't count.
I can't remember now. I mean, there's never been anything like this particularly.
No,
it's quite unique. And I quite like
snowmobile type racing games.
The video. I like the track-based stuff in the video, but I wasn't keen on the open environment stuff in the video. That looked a bit bland and boring. But the track-based stuff looked good. It's a shame that they didn't have any kind of replay cameras in there, so hence the video footage isn't very dynamic. It's just a bit repetitive. You kind of feel like you're watching the same clips over and over again.
Yeah, it probably shows the kind of phase of development it's at the moment, I suppose. But no, even so, it's good to see a developer try and again revive a lost genre, just like they did with Aqua Motor Racing.
Yeah, I think you've got a few of these games in the PS1 era, I believe.
I'm pretty sure we did. I think it was. I think it was called Sled Storm. Is that?
Yeah, I think that rings a bell. Yeah. I think there's one or two. Yeah, so it's an interesting concept with the open world sort of stuff. 2.5 square miles. But I mean, what can you do on a snowmobile that's interesting? That requires an open world. Who knows? Yeah, it doesn't immediately.
Another snow racing game actually. Motorstorm actually had a snow spin-off. On PSP. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
I think it's called Arctic Edge.
Oh, maybe it rings a bell.
And that had snowmobiles in it. So that's probably the last one I played.
It's surprising, isn't it? When I saw it today, I didn't. I was like, oh, that's something nice and unusual. We don't see that very often. It's amazing how, as genres go, it's not used very much. I think the thing is that in a way it works when you have different options as well. Like if you wanted to do snowboarder mode, you could, or if you wanted to do, whatever vehicles on there, different types of vehicles as well on it.
As a more complete package, because
an ATV option in there.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you had all that, it would be a nice complete package. I feel it might need a bit more, otherwise it might become a bit repetitive very quickly.
Yeah, it reminds me of like with you saying that, like MX versus ATV introduces two, you know, distinct styles, because one on their own might not be enough, as you say. But you know it's 40 tracks, 40. I mean, that's an awful lot of tracks. They've got 12 snowmobiles, 18 championships. It looks like there's plenty of content, but it's just whether the game is fun or not.
I just hope that, you know, you've got like half of those will be reverse tracks and backward tracks and all that sort of stuff these days to bump up the numbers. I think that's the only thing. I'd love to know how many individual environments there are, you know, in terms of, you know, what actual tracks they have and how big they are and how dynamic they are and stuff like that. You know, what kind of jumps and tricks and all that sort of stuff which is bound to be in it as well.
Yeah, there is.
Way, nice little game.
Big jumps, actually, judging from the trailer. It's definitely got that kind of arcade craziness to it, I think. It probably wouldn't work, to be honest, if it was too serious.
No, I mean, if it's half as good as Riptide, I mean, it's going to be worth playing. It's interesting to see the night racing there as well on the screenshots on the VVV website. There's a night racing shot there as well, which I thought was interesting.
That'll be interesting, yeah.
I don't believe I've seen night racing on snowmobiles before in the game.
Difficult to say. It's not a sport I follow, so but it is interesting.
I guess you could argue it's good timing, though, because we are starting to see a very slow kind of resurgence of that genre, what with obviously Blizzard Mountain and, of course, Steep, which came out quite recently.
The Steep was a bit dull when I played it. I don't know if the final game was better. I haven't seen what the reviews are for it.
I don't think it got an awful lot of exposure when it came out. Not that many sites covered it.
No, it's like a bygone era, isn't it, with these sort of snow games?
Well, yes and no. I actually think SSX would do really well. I think if EA released a new SSX, it'd be huge.
Well,
I just felt that Steep was lacking as a game, and I think probably Ubisoft realised that and just thought, well, let's just kick it out the door.
I mean, I love.
Yeah, it seemed to it lacked character to me from what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, SSX, the early SSX games were fantastic, but the more recent ones, they started blending like skiing and other disciplines. And in this case, it just didn't work, because where SSX excels is in its simplicity. You know, it's pick up and play nature. You've got tricks to do. You've got the lovely sort of fast-paced gameplay, great soundtrack. You know, so in that case, it actually suffered, in my opinion, because of the sort of extra disciplines.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, whilst we're on the subject of sort of lost series making comebacks, obviously last week we mentioned the possibility of a new Tokyo highway racer.
Yeah.
The developers since announced the new title, and it's not quite what we were expecting. Well, actually, in a way, it is, because it's a mobile racing game, not a console comeback.
It's not what we were hoping for. Yeah, but we was kind of expecting it. The worst case scenario has come true, isn't it?
I thought it might have been an arcade game, possibly.
Yeah,
it would have been nice, wouldn't it, to have had a proper Tokyo racer? People were hoping for that, but alas.
So I think that's where the series is best remembered, really, at the arcades. I think that would have been a bit more suitable.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see something like that, you know. I mean, even stuff like Initial D, you know, there's not been an Initial D game for years.
Especially not in this country.
No.
I mean, like we said, is it just another one of those things that have gone away, drifting in general, in games, in big AAA games? It seems to be. We've got Gymkhana, but it's a different beast, isn't it?
You know, it's got very much a cult following.
Yeah.
But would a drifting game in its own right sell? No, it can be a bolt-on to another type of game. But there's always a cult sort of community, say around Forza or anything, that just like drifting all the time.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's one of the things of Ed's videos this week is he shows how right in many ways Assetto Corsa gets it. And though Assetto Corsa's got the physics and it works perfectly, it lacks the style and the edge that some of the drifters actually want from, say, a game like Need for Speed. You know, they want to be able to do it in their modded cars. Drifting around stylishly at night and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's got a certain attitude, hasn't it? And
and that's what Assetto Corsa lacks, is that bit of attitude.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, I guess the only exception, obviously, we say drifting is usually a kind of, like you said, a bolt-on to existing games. I guess the main exception to that is Absolute Drift. That's a dedicated drifting game.
Yeah, it is.
And
It's
a very good one at that.
Yeah, it's a very sort of niche indie title. I like it though. I like the aesthetic of it. I like the clean nature of it, and
it's brilliant. It's unique.
Yeah, it's got a very in-depth handling model. Surprisingly so, actually.
It's also surprisingly relaxing for a game that's so challenging. It's hard to explain, but the combination of the sort of minimalistic visuals and the music, it's quite therapeutic. It's odd.
Yeah,
it's not quite what you expect. But yeah, if you're into drifting, that is definitely a game to pick up. We will have more on that shortly. As we know, the Nintendo Switch is coming out this March. And this week, Nintendo are going to be doing some sort of reveal event. So we'll probably learn the pricing and the launch titles. So it's inevitable that we'll get a new Mario Kart game. And it looks like the schedule for the conference has already been leaked. And surprise, surprise, we're going to get a game called Mario Kart 8 Switch It. So in other words, it's not going to be a new game. It's going to be the old game, but with new features to show off the new console. We probably could have guessed that one.
Yeah. Like a HD version, I guess. Yeah, it's disappointing, isn't it? Because we want to see Mario Kart 9, and it'll be a perfect launch title. But I guess, I guess he wasn't really expecting it for a launch title.
That's the problem. It sounds like a rushed launch title.
Yeah,
just to get a Mario Kart game out of the door onto the console.
Yeah, consoles are very hit and miss with launch titles, aren't they? Some are really good and really start off the generation well. And others are very forgettable, like you say, they've just been rushed out. And it'd be interesting to see where Mario Kart 8 falls.
I think it'll be I think Mario Kart has always been a great multiplayer game, battle modes and stuff like that. So I think in that regard, they want people out there connecting their, consoles together and playing in multiplayer games and stuff like that. So I think Mario Kart is a perfect 4-player game in that way to get those people together. So, and it could be brilliant. I hope it's a basic karting game. They're not in stupid, funny vehicles, that they're in proper karts like they were on the SNES version or the N64 version, when it was at its height, frankly.
There's no really bad Mercedes product placement either.
Yeah, we don't need like mini road cars and stuff. It just looks terrible. Looks like wacky racers in the end. And some of the Mario Karts have kind of gone down that road. So we'll wait and see. But I would like them to go more into that sort of backwards, if you like, to that style. But I think what can we say? It's Nintendo. You're going to get a new Mario, a new Zelda, a new something else. It's the same old brands. They'll kick them out the door.
A new Pokemon, which is always your favorite.
New Pokemon. I love Pokemon. Wow, yeah. But they have such a following that they could put the most terrible games in a box, brand it with their brand, and they'll sell. Obviously, Nintendo make incredible games, but they're not all incredible, and I think you can see that by the Mario Run recently. Whoever was involved in making it was Nintendo that signed the green light on it, and it was not much to it. So I think you can expect to see all the usual brands. They'll be looking for more multiplayer options. But I think the confusion in the initial trailer was, what age group are they targeting this at? Because there was quite a few older gamers that they were targeting the system to. I don't know. Maybe they think an older gamer's a more mature gamer, shall I say, is going to be after it. But we'll wait and see what the launch software's like. Yeah, we'll have a good old chat about that as well. I don't expect there to be many driving games on it as a system, though.
No.
So that's it really then for this week's racing game news. But now I think it's time to look at the road ahead, really, for what we can look forward to in 2017. Interestingly, though, I think we should know that nothing really has a solid release date yet. So it's all probably going to come out at once, knowing our luck. But I think really there's I would say 4 main big comebacks, really, from sort of major racing franchises to look forward to. So we got Gran Turismo Sport, Forza Motorsport 7, Project Cars 2, and Need for Speed 2, or whatever they're going to call it. I'd say probably based on the original game, I'm most excited about Project Cars 2, and it seems like we're going to be learning more about it very shortly this month, judging by Ian Bell's comments. They've been very quiet about it for the last year and a half or so. I just can't wait for it. Basically, I mean, yes, the original was broken on release. It's full of bugs. But if they can build on that foundation, I think it just has so much potential. Yeah, but like I said, we're going to find out more about it in January. What are your thoughts on it so far, from what we have seen and from what we do know so far?
I would say at the moment we know so little about it, don't we? I mean, we know it's going to have the off-road. It looks like some rallycross or something. Very difficult to say. I mean, a lot of work apparently has gone into physics and stuff like that, improving the physics. I saw a mention today that they're working on. They know that Dirt Rally and Race Room are the benchmarks in audio, and they're determined to match them and beat them. And they believe they can do that. So they're investing in new audio technology, and they had good audio anyway. So I think that's pretty.
I was about to say, yeah, it's not like Project Cars was really lacking in that area, was it?
No, they've made a lot of breakthroughs in other areas in terms of AI, in terms of track surface systems, so weather conditions affecting tire temperatures, the tire feedback from the model has been improved. Solidity of the game, obviously bugs will be a major thing that they don't want in this game, but they believe that this time, the way it's been built, it's been a much more solid foundation. They've learned a lot. So, I think it's the Project Cars game we all wanted in the first place, that's going to be made even better. And then also, even visuals. People saying there's steps forward in visuals. It's looking amazing now. So, it sounds like everything has been improved at the moment. And I think, and I know, when it comes to viewers, the first thing viewers are going to say, is there bugs when it comes to a preview? Did you see bugs? That's all viewers are going to say when we start previewing the game later this year. But we'll preview it like we preview every other game. And I think where the bugs are concerned, that will be something that we ask the developers. It will be a conversation, and we will put it to them, let's talk about bugs in the first game. And what are we going to expect in this game? And I think that people are, a lot of the previewers are going to be going through it with a fine-tooth comb. I don't like a bug hunt, as I call it, because people start looking for things that aren't actually bugs, and especially if they're not qualified. They start crashing into a wall constantly, seeing if they can get into it, stuff like that. That's not the way to do it. But as I say, we'll wait and see. They know what they've got to do. And they know that this time it's got to be free, and hence Ian's post was talking about how they're going to do 7 months of testing before it actually gets released. So
it does sound reassuring.
Yeah, when they brought Project Cars together, it clearly had a lot of bugs, and they knew when they were releasing it that there was bugs in that game all over the place, and they didn't have time to fix them. So I think that this time they know that can't happen. So I'm expecting a far more solid experience all round, and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with the extra content. I just hope that the career mode is still as extensive as it was before.
Yeah, more extensive now. More extensive. Yeah. I mean, it's going to have these extra. Don't forget, it will have all the racing genres it had before. Plus, now it will have rally and off-road. So, if anything, it will be more extensive, and there might be more options as to which direction you go in your career.
Yeah, so to me that was one of the main appeals of the first game, just the sheer variety of different racing disciplines. It really took you back to that kind of TOCA race driver era.
I mean, some of the disciplines were quite light on content, weren't they? The sort of feeder Formula series, some of those were pretty light. I think it was like 3 or 4 events, tracks in one of the.
Yeah, some of them could be a bit more fleshed out.
I just hope we don't get too fragmented of all disciplines. I hope there's enough content for each one to make each discipline worthwhile.
There needs to be quality over quantity.
I think one of the strengths of Project Cars overall was its track selection. It had. I think so many games have hundreds of cars and then a very small amount of tracks to race them all on.
Project Cars had the opposite problem, if anything.
Yeah, well, no, actually, no. I think it was reasonably well balanced, but I would have liked a few more racing cars in there. Yeah. I suppose something I would like to do is run a LMP championship with, Porsches and Ferraris and all these other cars racing round, so that when you run Le Mans, you're running on a full grid, you're overtaking constantly. There's so much you can do when you've got a full grid of cars. I think, like you were saying, Kevin, about stuff like, say, go-karting, there wasn't many kart tracks. and we was expecting more. Those kart tracks were actually all previously made for another game in the past. So they do have more kart tracks. And also they were meant to bring oval racing into Project Cars. That never happened. So expect to see the ovals. We never saw the pit crews, so expect to see the pit crews. And also one of the developers is very keen on VR, understands that obviously Project Cars doesn't run very well in VR. So in terms of, the frame rate's not great. So I expect it to be very VR friendly, which is amazing.
Wow, that would
be amazing. Whether it runs on PlayStation VR, that's another thing, because it probably will, but with about 2 cars.
It'll be a separate mode, won't it? Much like GT Sport.
Got to be. Yeah.
We'll come out for the next PlayStation VR, which we know will probably happen, possibly later down the line.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot later down the line. Yeah.
I think too as well. The original game didn't really have very many road cars, but from the sounds of it, that has now been rectified because they've basically said that all 3 major manufacturers will be in it this time, which of course must be Ferrari, Porsche, and Lamborghini.
But that's racing cars, though. But that's predominantly going to be racing cars because they need, as I say, when running LMP, they didn't have all the cars in there. So I think their focus. I don't think they're going to go down the road car route. I think they're going to say that's Gran Turismo, and we're going to stick with racing cars and racing
I think,
genres.
admittedly, we're probably asking too much.
Yeah,
we're spoiled with the original, aren't we? We're asking too much of the sequel.
We are. Personally, I'd like to see them stick to racing cars. I think we've got enough road cars in so many other types of games, and I would like to see them stick to the actual. If they have time to bring in a few road cars, great. But the problem with bringing in a few road cars is people are always going to be dissatisfied because if they bring in 10 road cars, people say you should have brought in this one, this one, this one. If you think about it, even if they brought in 100 road cars, people will complain. So I think if they stick to racing cars and they do all kinds of racing cars that's not in racing games, there's still a lot out there. I think they can really flesh out the field and the championships. Because don't forget, you'll see the rally cars, the rallycross cars, other types of formula, stuff like that. So I think there's a lot to be looking forward to. But as you say, I think career mode, make that work, flesh it out. And I think, but road cars wise, no, I do feel that let's stick with a focus genre and do a really good job of racing cars rather than try competing directly with Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo on who's got the most cars, because it does change the genre. They had road cars in Need for Speed Shift, obviously, and if they go down that road, they can. But you think, what's the minimum number of road cars you can launch with to be interesting?
Well, the total car count is in the region of 200 from what we know so far. So it'll be interesting to see how that's divided into all the different disciplines.
That's an awful lot of cars, isn't it? When you consider all the different, nighttime racing, weather, all the different tracks. 200 cars is an amazing number.
It is. That's a great number already. So I think to myself, if you're going to do road cars, you need a certain number. So I think if they launch with a minimum 50 road cars, that's the minimum that you need. Otherwise, people will just complain because I'll just start comparing it. But I think race cars, I hope they've got, like you say, a wide range of vintage race cars in there as well. That's what I liked about Project Cars was the vintage circuits and stuff like that. I'd like to see more of that this time because I thought that was really cool with some of the packs. Just added a bit more variety to it. I was driving some of those 70s cars, had great fun sliding them around. So. You've done that, Kevin, haven't you, on one of those tracks? It was great racing.
Yeah.
And in VR, some of those classic cars were brilliant in VR because, as I say, you were leaning over the car to see your wheel lining up with the lines in the road. And
they just sound so good, don't they? It's amazing.
Very intense, some of the in-car sounds. So, very enjoyable. And, as I say, there's so much potential there to build on, if it all comes together as good as it can possibly be.
Game of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be competing directly with Forza 7 and Gran Turismo Sport. Wow, it's a titanic hit. You're going to get 3 big hitters out, all within a couple of months of each other. They are definitely going to hurt each other. There's no doubt about it. They're going to hurt each other. I know that they're 2 big hitters and that they've got the big marketing budgets, but I just think to myself, wow, it's really going to be interesting for the racing market. I think the thing about Project Cars is they've got a lot of people saying they won't get my money again because there was bugs in the first game. There's a lot of people saying that. But, you just wait till they start seeing the trailers and the previews and the questions start being answered, because there will be questions over those bugs. And if they get the right answers and the game works, then, I think that it's game on, basically. It's going to be very competitive between all of them. And then it's all down to, like you say, what's the feeling of the actual racing? I mean, Gran Turismo Sport, we've not really seen much develop on that in almost a year. So Gran Turismo Sport needs a hell of a lot more content to be displayed if it's going to compete at this stage. It's, I think Gran Turismo will have the superior photo mode. I think that's
that much we can guarantee.
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to be a case of who releases first wins 2017?
No, it's going to be very close between all of them, but it's not going to be about who releases first. I mean, but it will depend on how closely they're released together. Take this year, you had Battlefield 1 released, which sold really well. Then you had Titanfall 2, which arguably was the better game, many people feel, and that didn't sell well at all. And then you had Call of Duty, third one to be released, and that was a Christmas #1 and the bestseller of the three. So, yeah, they still managed to hang in there. Yes, with much lower sales than they had before. They hurt each other, for sure. But they still managed to retain it. So what that means is, on paper, Gran Turismo still has a solid following. Project Cars will take something from both games and be bigger than it was before, but it might not necessarily be as big as the other two, but it will firmly be on the map. And that does mean that if it's not as big as the other two now, that it will be in the future if this game is as good as it can be. But if it turns out that it's got a stack of bugs in it, then, it will hurt them long term. There's no doubt about that. So the pressure is on
the first one did sell very well, all things considered, for a new IP.
It did. It did.
They don't want to cement themselves a reputation for buggy games. That's the thing. So number 2, like you say, has to be 95% bug free, doesn't it? At least.
Well, so far then we know that we should be seeing a bit more of Project Cars 2 at some point this month. We'll probably get a reveal trailer and things like that. So that's all very exciting. As for the release date, Ian Bell at Slightly Mad Studios has nailed it in for sort of September-ish.
September-ish, yeah.
Which, of course, is normally Forza's slot, traditionally.
Yeah.
They keep alternating between Forza Horizon and Forza Motorsport. But this year, it's Forza Motorsport's turn with Forza Motorsport 7. And we know it's happening thanks to Fnatic. They leaked it just in December. I mean, let's face it, we knew it was coming anyway, but it's still nice to have that confirmation. The big thing about Forza Motorsport 7 is that it seems to be going down a more simulation route, judging by the increased resources for the wheel support, which is promising. That was something that was really lacking, I think, in number 6 and obviously number 5. So again, I think Project Cars will have some quite stiff competition if that is the case. And I mean, we were talking earlier about the emphasis on racing cars as well. We started to see a bit more of that in number 6. So whether or not 7 will sort of build on that, it'll be quite an interesting comparison, I think, between that and Project Cars 2.
Well, it will be. I mean, because we're expecting weather for the first time in Forza 7.
Dynamic weather.
Yeah. For the first time. Also, until Forza 5, they weren't able to model suspension properly and stuff like that. So, that was sort of holding back. The feedback from Fnatic is much better physics, better feedback, better handling. That's really positive, because if there's one of the things that I've been on my own sort of complaining about the handling in Forza 6, and I had quite a few Forza fans have a go at me about it. But I stand by. I went on it again recently, racing it, and I still am not keen on handling with a wheel. I mean, testing the new CSL Elite wheel, and there'll be some videos coming up of me testing it on various different games, including Forza. And I can drive the car around on the racing line, but it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel like a car to me, a real car. It feels like a toy car, and it's just, without playing it, I can't articulate the exact sensations of everything, but it just wasn't right. So I think that there's certainly work to do there. It's very positive, the comments from Fanatic, and I really look forward to it. Suffice to say, I'll be trying to get a hands on and play it if Turn 10 let me. So.
Of course, the big thing about Forza 7 is, of course, the fact it'll be running on the new Project Scorpio hardware, which, of course, is 4 times as powerful as the Xbox One.
Yeah, look how good Forza Motorsport 6 looked.
Exactly. It looks absolutely incredible for a console game, and especially on the underpowered Xbox. And it's the same with Forza Horizon, which I'd argue in a way is more impressive because it's set in an expansive open-world environment. It boggles the mind to think what these developers will be able to do with the extra power of the new console.
Well, I hope. My hope is that they do what, say, the Tomb Raider guys did. That you have 4K mode, so you can run it at 4K 60 frames on lower graphics, or you have 2160p checkerboard rendering type system, so they have a higher resolution but more detail, or you have 1080p resolution, but they use all that power on extra detail. And I hope that they have those options. Which option do you want to run at? And if they do, then it would be really nice to see that extra performance for 1080p TV owners. And given a choice as well, if you have a 4K TV, quite often a lot of people that use 4K TVs, depending on their size, opt for the checkerboard rendering because they say it's not massively different, but it saves an awful lot on performance, so they can do a lot more with it. So I hope they retain those options.
I do wonder as well how many cars we'll actually see in Forza 7, because obviously they made a big thing in Forza 5 saying that there was less cars because they had to start from scratch and remodel them to take advantage of the new console. Will that happen again, or will they use the existing assets from Forza 6? Will they do a polyphony and add standard and premium cars? Who knows?
Please no.
No, I actually think if you look at
don't do that.
No, I don't think they need to do that. I think if you look at the detail in the Auto Vista models that they've got, they're about as detailed as models are ever going to get within the foreseeable future. For some time as well, they've been making their models with 4K textures. So they've actually been preparing. So hence, Forza 6 is already available in 4K on the PC. So they've already developed 4K models for use on the new games, essentially, in technology. So actually, in fact, it's actually been probably a 4-year plan moving to this 4K for them. And they should be in really good shape. So I think that they're going to want to make this amazing. They're going to want to say, let's throw dynamic weather. Let's have the most cars we've ever had on Forza title. Let's get a load of unique cars we've never had before. And let's have more tracks than we've done before. And let's compete directly with Gran Turismo. Now, Gran Turismo has off-road. Does that mean Forza will do anything off-road? I don't think so yet. I think they're going to save that for the next iteration in a couple more years.
Probably maybe save it for Forza Horizon.
Well, yes and no. I mean, Forza Horizon already has off-road, so it'd be nothing new there. But they don't have full simulation off-road. So, I mean, maybe that's something that will come in a few years' time.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how extensive the rally is in GT Sport. If it's anything like we've seen in previous titles, it would just be like a throwaway extension to the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with Project Cars 2. I mean, is Project Cars 2 going to have a proper rally mode? Is it just going to have 4 stages, or is it going to have, a proper rally game in there as well? I mean, it's difficult to say at the moment. And, GT Sport, we've seen 1 rally track. I don't think GT's ever had more than 3 rally tracks in a game. So it can never be called a rally game. It's like a rally muckabout area. There's not really a rally. And my complaint always, right back to GT3, was not enough rally tracks to be a rally game, not enough circuits to do Le Mans, not enough circuits to do any other type of racing. You couldn't run any one championship properly in the game because of the type of circuits that it had and the lack of in each area back in the day. So yeah, I think that with all these games, it's making sure you've got enough tracks and enough of the right cars to be able to run your leagues and everything else. Hence why we won't see another Toka touring car, because in theory you can bring them all into a game like this.
Yeah, that's a shame. So in terms of the release date, Forza Motorsport 7 will probably come out in September, judging by the previous games in the series, and we'll probably learn more about it at this year's E3. So I guess moving on then to Gran Turismo Sport. What can we really say about it that we haven't said before, other than it's the ultimate photo mode simulator?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, we talked about it a bit already. It's going to be fun to play. I mean, I've played it. Martin, you've played it. It's fun to play. Okay, it's nice, fun handling. The cars and the graphics are big and bold visuals. They're very nice visuals. It'll have some nice effects. It'll be one of the best looking racing games on the system. It will probably have quite a few cars, but we know so little about it right now that it's very difficult to judge where it's going to be. They don't even know themselves if it's GT Sport or GT7. They've been showing developments over the year, but nothing new. The VR mode is now a cut down VR mode, which I think is hugely disappointing. I was really expecting GT VR to be.
That could have been a serious system seller for the.
It would have been a system seller, yeah, for VR and for PlayStation. And I think the fact that it's now just a throwaway add-on mode. I think the fact that the PS Pro has been released really splits the focus for them in some ways, and I kind of wish the total focus was on PS4. A lot of people bought PlayStation 4s when they were released because they said a Gran Turismo game would be out within a couple of years. And now they're finding out after they've had a PlayStation for 3 years, in actual fact, really, you need a PS Pro to get the most of it. So, it's annoyed a lot of people out there, in terms of that approach. So, we know it's Gran Turismo. We're all going to buy it. It's going to be great fun to play. But will it match up to Gran Turismo's own standards? I don't know. We'll wait and see.
It's hard to say. I think it needs to have almost like another launch event just to remind people that it's still coming.
It does. I think they could do with another launch event with showing us 20 more racetracks and loads more cars, loads more disciplines, much improved replays. Let's see another online event with a much more stable online experience and racing, because the experience they showed a year ago was not stable in the slightest. It was a little bit messy, cars jumping about here and there, and
No, for Gran Turismo launch event, it was surprisingly underwhelming. I mean, the launch of a new Gran Turismo is such a big deal normally. I remember the anticipation of watching the new trailers when they came out at E3 and just being blown away.
Oh, wow. 2010, Gran Turismo 5, and the music they're going. And there was a scene in that trailer when there's this cool piece of deep music, and you're looking at a rally car, and it zooms out this rally car, and you see this field, and it's like, wow, I just want to drive into that field.
I miss that feeling. I just haven't had that feeling.
Like, wow, technology just blowing your mind, and I think that's what I want from Gran Turismo. I want the camera to just zoom out, fly over the circuit, and go, look at these shiny cars. Oh my god, that's what I want from Gran Turismo. And I think that's why I'm frustrated, is because they're not reaching their own sort of level of blowing my socks off. And what I've seen, that oval circuit is dull. The Tokyo circuit is dull. I mean, it's nice enough, but it's lifeless. And nothing has grabbed me yet and said, wow, that's spectacular.
I do get the impression that you might think that if you have a 4K TV, though.
No, it
seems to be on 4K technology, and that's it's annoying how it's kind of splitting its audience like that.
Exactly, and that's something I am a bit afraid of. So,
I mean, we've seen the shiny cars and a few tracks. I'm past that now. I want to see fundamental elements. I want to see the iRacing system, if you like, in action. Penalty systems. I want to see damage, good damage modeling. Punish these players for hitting the sides of the track, and I need to see the fundamentals to actual racing in there. And they're only showing shinier and shinier cars and a few tracks here and there. Where's the actual fundamentals to the racing aspect of the game? It's supposed to be GT Sports. Let's see the sport. We've seen the cars and tracks before in previous iterations. Show me what is so special about sport, which will separate it from the sort of regular main titles.
Yeah, that's what we need. I mean, we do need that, and we do need to see these other circuits in action. I mean, I am, as I say, I'm not a fan of the Nordschleife, so it never does anything for me really. And I think races on there for me have always been a bit dull. So I look forward to seeing more cars and circuits and more racing action, and giving it a more gritty feel in a way as well. But I think this is why it's going to be very interesting this year. These are 3 very big racing titles. They're all aiming for an identical market. Project Cars obviously will be the smaller title, but being released on PC, Xbox, and PS4. It's going to be spread across all three. My goodness, it's going to be interesting to see how it.
I think if they market it the right way, Project Cars 2 could be the underdog.
It is technically, because of the scale of Microsoft and Sony, it is the underdog. It's not going to be launched at, Forza 7 will be launched at the Microsoft press conference at E3. That gets, millions of eyeballs.
Oh, the marketing campaign is, Project Cars can never go up against the marketing campaigns of the likes of Forza and Gran.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I think, but it has the potential to overtake it, both series and other. In terms
of game and content and package, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's what's frustrating sometimes is that, EA can release a terrible Need for Speed and it's going to be vying for Christmas #1 because they have such well-oiled marketing departments. They have so much cash, so much planning, so much community and press sort of support that, they've got it down and it's going to sell well, even if it's terrible.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see what they do with Need for Speed 2 or whatever they call it. I hope it has a more original name than that, I must admit.
I don't like these reboot names myself. No,
I don't like it either.
So Need for Speed 2 was terrible.
I mean, you go 10 years in the future, we'll look back. 10 years in the future, we'll look back and think, what was the name of that Need for Speed that came out on the PS4 and Xbox One?
I suppose in the case of Need for Speed, it does technically get away with it because the original was called The Need for Speed, or to give it its full name, Road and Track Presents The Need for Speed.
Yeah, but I mean, we need an identity, don't we, or a number at least, just to distinguish it from other titles. And
it's interesting to see what direction they take it in, though, because obviously they tried the kind of almost underground style again. Didn't really work. No. It's difficult to really judge how they'll really expand upon it. Will they keep that sort of theme running and build on it, or will they take it in another direction yet again?
I think they're going to build on that. I think they're going to build on that map. I think they're going to build on the cars. I think that they've got to bring some more in terms of environmental detail, lighting, transitional life to it. But I can't see them throwing the assets away because they're working with the same studio now. It means that studio is just going to build upon what they've already got. So
it wasn't cheap either getting all those likenesses for the reboot game with Ken Block and famous figures like that.
It's sort of, you look at it and think, more time spent on the actual game itself, rather than all the marketing campaign that goes with it. But then it sells well, even if it's not great. That's the thing. So. We'll wait and see. I mean, the fact that it had so many major problems, didn't use steering wheels, didn't have manual gears, for me was
no time of day,
no cockpit view.
No cockpit view. I mean, my goodness me, how many driving games could get away with that and still sell loads these days?
I mean, I want to see what my car looks like from the inside when I mod it. Games like Midnight Club done that fantastically well.
Yeah.
And all these years later, we're not getting as much in our games. No. It'd be interesting to see what they do with the map. I mean, they might incorporate the sort of city area with the skyscrapers into the existing map, and maybe expand it that way.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think also, if they had a tunnel that went through the mountains and came out in a leafy green environment or something, and it can take you to entirely different locations, that you can connect it all together that way, and I think that they just, like you say, there's a lot that needs to be done in gameplay. I think they need to sit down they needed to a couple of years ago, sit down and say, right, what have we got right and what have we got wrong and what do we need to build on? And I think it needs a lot of work, and I think, yes, now they need to double the size of the map. But like you say, all these extra features, we could make 20 bullet points of what the game needs. And
so the map was just so lifeless and boring.
Nobody there, nothing to do, no other car clubs, police didn't work properly, no atmosphere, traffic levels didn't change at different times of night. I think that there was no car clubs, car meets, that kind of stuff, owners club meets and stuff like that. So you could meet up with a load of guys with the same car and just cruise around and make noise. That kind of stuff. And it needed more to it, more challenges. But like you say, the environment, it was dead, no people around, nothing. So
you mentioned too the police aspect. I mean, that's such a core element of the Need for Speed franchise.
It didn't work properly at all.
It was very underwhelming. I mean, I would love it. I would love to see the series go back into the sort of hot pursuit style.
Yeah, exactly. You had different contraptions like spikes and things like that, and different EMP, I think it was, and it's fun, isn't it? And that's what was missing from Need for Speed Reboot. It was fun. And this is the reset of the franchise. This should have been the big comeback for the title. It sort of lost its way a little bit, and they had a 2-year development cycle as opposed to the 1 year or yearly title. So we just assumed it would come back strong, and it didn't. It sort of screams foundation title though, doesn't it? It screams like, we're going to build upon this, and it's going to be good next time, not this time, but next time. And it's just a shame that such a big developer is sort of unable to really give the reboot, the life it should have had. I'm
wondering too if it'll have any sort of VR functions.
I'd love to see it, but I don't think so. They've got to get the fundamentals right, and I think VR is the frilly bits that we're years away from.
EA have no interest in it because it's not a big enough area of the market for them. And I mean, you might get a demo, maybe like they did with Star Wars.
I wonder, because we saw the release of that VR Need for Speed mobile title, which almost seemed like a bit of a test, really, to see how the market reacted to it.
Yeah, they might do a test. I mean, I think that certainly VR has sold so well this year. I think there was a figure of how many VR headsets, 2 million VR headsets have sold, including mobile, over the past year. So, I mean, that I'm not talking about when I'm talking about mobile, I'm talking about the plastic ones. What do you call them? Samsung ones.
Gear, is it?
Gear, yeah, stuff like that. So VR is selling well, and it's selling a lot better than anyone expected. You can see that by Sony's terrible projections of what they were projecting for PSVR. I mean, to get their jobs so wrong, you'd be fired in any other role. So it's great to see that VR's doing well, but it'll be interesting when we see bigger publishers like EA actually try things out. But I think Star Wars was so impressive recently. It just shows when studios with that kind of budget can invest in VR. Wow, the potential is obvious. So, perhaps a demo for Need for Speed.
Yeah, well, again, chances are we'll see what EA have been up to at this year's E3, where we'll no doubt see the reveal of the new Need for Speed. And one series I would personally love to see make a comeback, well, not only Driver, obviously, but also Destruction Derby. If you follow our YouTube channel, you will have recently seen Alan's Destruction Derby look back on the PlayStation 1. Brought back a lot of memories, I have to say. I played that game to death when it came out. But it leads me on to the release of Wreckfest, which is debuting on consoles for the first time this year. It's been in Steam Early Access for way too long, really. About 3 or 4 years now, I think. As Alan said before, it showed a lot of promise when it first came out, but it's some of the updates have kind of made it worse, surprisingly. So we're sort of holding our breath, but as long as we take the feedback on board, I think that there is a lot of promise in Wreckfest. It's a market that has really been it's left a void in the market for so long, I think.
I guess with the console versions are concerned, I believe the game's coming out for the PC first, and then we're going to see maybe 2 or 3 months later PS4 and Xbox One. So there is a little bit of time there for some wiggle room to correct any errors in the PC version, so the consoles get the best possible version. So there is that little safety net there.
I'm just dying to play it because I miss Destruction Derby.
You're not alone. Me and Alan as well. We're massive Destruction Derby fans.
Yeah. It was great getting back to that this week and playing it. It brought so many memories back playing it, and so many things that you remember and forget about the game as well. The trouble is, when I play these games, I set my PlayStation 1 up via a SCART box to my HDMI to my TV, and I play these games in a kind of blurry widescreen, so I don't see them as you see them in the final video, because I squash them into 4:3 once I actually edit it afterwards, so they look pretty horrible to play when you're actually playing them. But it's still great to play some of these old titles, and there's something so simplistic and so fun about them. But in a way, that's what I liked about Wreckfest when it was Next Car Game. And there's a few Wreckfest videos on the channel of me playing it early on and absolutely loving it. I loved it when I first played Wreckfest. I was playing it all the time. I did tons of laps of that first dirt track. Really, really enjoyed it. And like I say, then they changed the handling and the render system, and the triple screens didn't work properly, or they adjusted them and it weren't as good, and then it just didn't run as well. It didn't play as well. They also changed the car sound. It had a really nice V8 car sound when it first came.
I remember
out.
that, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a really nice glugging V8 sort of sound. And, you know, and then they changed it to some high-pitched angry car audio. And it's like, oh, you know, what's going on there? So numerous changes, but a lot of them that I've not been as keen on. And I just wasn't as invested in it. But the figure of 8 track was also excellent, you know. When
the carnage in that track was unbelievable.
Carnage. And it just, you know, you say, if they could convert it really well to the current consoles, then it would be a great addition. But there's definitely a market for it.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's so simple, isn't it? Like a figure 8 track is as simple as it gets, but the fact that you cross over, you know, it's such a fun little experience, isn't it? Because at any moment you could get hit by a car. You can't see it coming. There's always that sort of tension as you cross the cross point, you know. So it's simple little things like that we need to see more of in games that are maybe a little bit overcomplicated, maybe a little bit overambitious. It's nice to see sort of these titles that are just sort of focused on the fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. I mean, also watching your Destruction Derby video back, it reminded me how revolutionary the damage modeling was. And I think Wreckfest has the potential to do the same again on the current consoles.
Can you imagine it? I mean, amazing. I just can't wait for Wreckfest. You know, even if it has half the damage model we've seen previously, because you can imagine all the parts flying everywhere, and you can imagine driving over parts, getting bumped around, and it'd just be absolutely carnage, like you say. And wow, I mean, just give me that game.
It won't be as extensive, I don't think, as what we saw on the early versions of the PC game.
No.
But even so, it'll still be much better than anything else on the market at the moment.
Yeah, it needs a decent amount of cars, doesn't it, on track at any one time? But I guess there's always a limit. You know, there's a line not to cross, because if there's too many cars, it's too chaotic, I guess, and it takes away from the fun a bit. So it's finding that balance between the sort of fun and technical limitations.
Yeah, and of course, speaking of Demolition Derby style games, what has happened to Flat Out 4?
Yeah, I mean, we saw screenshots on its announcement, not last August, but the previous. So I don't know what's happening with that title. I mean, it's from Kiloton Games, and they're working on a few titles, as I understand it. So, yeah, who knows? I hope it's not been canned, put it that way.
Yeah, nothing's been said about it since, I think, July, August last year, something like that. Doesn't really bode well. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, I'll see how it develops. I mean, you know, it's funny. There's a part of me that would love to see an HD remake of Destruction Derby. You know, Reflections were given the option to remake it pretty much as it is, with multiplayer gameplay. You know, I think that alone would be a great HD upgrade experience, because it was so simplistic. And you know, I did manage to play Link Up with another PlayStation on it, and it was amazing to play at the time on a Link Up. You know, it felt like an arcade. And I don't know, I would like to see, you know, we see so many HD remakes of games that aren't that old, and I'd love to see proper early PS1 games that are 20 years old remade.
We have one, don't we?
Crash Bandicoot might start the trend of that if it's successful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Crash Bandicoot will be the first one. We'll see how that sells, and you know, and then we'll go from there. In terms of, I mean, there's other titles like G Police, Colony Wars. There's loads of titles on the PS1. I mean, for me, the #1 title in the world that I would love to see remade is Magic Carpet. Magic Carpet, PS1. Magic Carpet, for me, I was addicted to that game. I loved my mana. Right, and I was just loving that game. I tell you, it was years ahead of its time. You know, deformable environments, magic and dragons and flying around, blowing stuff up. It used some racing skills as well, and they even used the engine on a racing game called High Octane, which was terrible, I might add. And I love Magic Carpet. I think what they could do with Magic Carpet with a Scorpio, you know, it would just blow my mind. But unfortunately, I don't even know who owns it. I guess EA own it somewhere in their vaults as part of Bullfrog. I'd love to see that. You know, or does it come under Lionhead, in which case it'd be Microsoft? I think it's a Bullfrog game, so I'm assuming EA would own the rights to that, like Dungeon Keeper, stuff like that. I know it's not racing, but I'd love to see these games there are some great games that I'd love to see remade and remastered using current tech with multiplayer now, which didn't exist back then. Let's always remember that there was no multiplayer for these games back then. So
if we steer back to racing games, I guess we should quickly move on to bike racing games. We no doubt will get a new MotoGP title of some sort, although it's hard to really judge how they're what they could do next, really, after Valentino Rossi the game. I mean, that took the series in quite a different direction.
It would be strange if they just went back to the roots, wouldn't it? Because it would feel like the game didn't have much content unless they really fundamentally changed the experience. They're going to have a bit of a tough time on their hands there to really sort of come back with this year's MotoGP title.
Yeah, it would feel like a bit of a downgrade if it doesn't have.
It's a problem, isn't it? It's a problem. I mean, the thing about MotoGP is it really needs, for me, it needs a refresh. It needs a new graphics engine, new approach, new look to it. That's what I'd like to see from MotoGP now. It's been looking a little bit dated in terms of its look, and I think it really could do with a whole refresh. Actually,
it needs a new graphics engine.
Yeah, new graphics engine. So, but is just MotoGP and the Moto 2 and 3, is that enough on its own? Difficult to say. If they come up with a new engine, it looks amazing and plays amazing, it is enough.
Yeah.
If it's just MotoGP as we saw last year with a different number on it and different bikes in different places, then no, they need more gimmicky stuff to pad it out a bit. But I don't think you need gimmicks when you've got a really good game at the core.
No,
I think Codemasters have sort of demonstrated that to a point with Formula One. So, although I do miss the old F1 cars from F1 2013,
Don't forget we're getting the new Isle of Man TT game though from Kiloton. That does sound promising, potentially. Potentially
promising. We'll just have to wait and see how those bikes handle. The problem is with a twisty road circuit like that, you need bikes that are really intuitive, that go where you want them to go, but somehow still feel natural. That's a real challenge for those developers to get it just right. And to an extent, Milestone did it with Ride 2. So
they got there eventually, but it took quite a few years to perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's the second motorbike game, isn't it, Kiloton? And the first one was
the first one.
Pretty awful. So they haven't got that. They haven't got that foundation that Milestone had. Milestone had brought out a number of motorbike games before they sort of struck it rich with Ride 2. So I do fear a little bit, like you say, with the handling. So it's a tricky one, like you say. Yeah.
It's just that they did what they did with WRC and bring some experts in that obviously have the experience and know what they're talking about. If that is the case, and that will give me more confidence. But yeah, if you go into it just looking, just base your opinion on from Motorcycle Club, it doesn't really bode well.
No, it was a pretty bad.
It's a big undertaking to model the full circuit as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. It's a huge amount of work. If you go online and you watch a lap of the circuit flat out full speed, it's around 21 minutes a lap. So it's a hell of a lap. Think about that.
Don't envy them.
Probably what's that? 3.5, 4 times the size of the Nordschleife. And it's a lot more detailed as well. So a lot of streets to go through. I watched a couple of videos of people riding round on it. What's his name? Guy riding round, and I watched a sidecar as well. Somebody was on a sidecar. And if you've never seen sidecar racing, my God! If you think the bikers are crazy, you see the sidecars going around corners. The guy in the sidecar literally throwing himself off the edge of the bike to help pull it round. I mean, if they crash, it must be pretty nasty.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see sidecar racing, won't it? And maybe you could control the guy in the sidecar as opposed to the guy on the bike or something like that. They could have some sort of experimentation there. But, like you say, you're going to be driving through a number of towns. It's a massive undertaking, this map, to make it believable. That's the key. Anyone can do a map that's massive, but to make it actually believable, that's going to be a real challenge. And I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing the first screens and how it develops, really.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got, whilst we're still on the subject of bike racing games, Road Rage, which is pretty much a spiritual successor to Road Rash, which is yet another franchise we haven't seen in a very long time. Again, my only worry with that title is again, just like Kiloton, the developer's track history. This is being made by Team 6, which of course made the abysmal Flat Out 3. Whatever the full name was, I can't remember. It was so bad. I've just erased it from my memory. It was that bad.
It was, yeah. It was absolutely horrendous, wasn't it? It was a real franchise killer, wasn't it? And thankfully, you know, Killerton are working on number 4, and you know, hopefully that can kickstart the franchise again. But yeah, that was awful. I forget now. Is Road Rage the open world?
Yes,
it is. Oh, it is. Yeah. So graphically, it looks pretty poor. From what we've seen so far. It's one of those games again that's lacking life in the environments and believability, and you know, it looks very last generation. I don't know what they can do with that title to really sort of bring it to life between now and its release this year. It'd be a real tough one to turn around.
It was delayed, so you'd hope that they're using that time to polish it up. But it's hard to judge at the moment. We'll have to wait and see.
It needs to be fun, doesn't it, to get away with the graphics?
Yeah.
And that's where I guess Carmageddon fell down. It wasn't fun enough, so it failed.
Which is wrong for a combat racer.
Yeah, it's got to be fun and flowing.
That's it. And I guess the other big question mark then is, what have Codemasters been cooking up?
Now that's the big question.
That is the big question.
You know, Drive Club developers, they've made kick-ass games in the past. They're going to make something kick-ass for Codemasters. And what's great about this, what's exciting, is I don't have a clue what it is. And I don't have a clue what direction they're going to go down. I mean, they could go down crazy off-road. They could do anything, any type of game they want, those guys, when it comes to racing. Who knows? I mean, they could make the new Project Gotham Racing if they wanted to. Anything. I mean, the mind boggles. You know, if you think about what brands they've got Formula One for track racing. They've got Dirt Rally for rally racing. So what are they going to do? Well, let's have a think. They could do a MotorStorm off-road type experience, or they could do more likely street racing. They don't have any street racing.
I could say, well, we see Grid, a new Grid title.
Might see a new Grid title because Grid sort of crosses the boundary between the two, but I just kind of feel they still could be looking at a Project Gotham Racing style vibe.
Yeah, because they have hinted it's going to be a new IP as well.
Yeah, and I think that if you think about the only rival to them would be Need for Speed if they decided to go down that road of some kind of street racing car game. You know, like you're saying, PGR would be an ideal feel when you look at what some of the new tracks that were coming to Drive Club. But then they might go completely different, like you're saying, might go for crazy MotorStorm style thing instead.
I hope so.
But you know, bearing in mind what Codemasters have already got, and they won't want to rival to that.
No, exactly.
Then you know that there's only those two areas of the market that they're not sort of covering right now. You know, where they're going to have a new IP that could develop well. I don't know where Grid is going at the moment. I think Grid Autosport was really good fun. It was a bit underrated, really.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about it is, why didn't they release it on Xbox One and PS4? I just don't understand that move, why they didn't release it on those two consoles. I couldn't believe it at the time that they weren't releasing it on those two consoles. It just seemed crazy. So, you know, they didn't do the brand any good by just dropping it on the old system. You know, and that was the big mistake there. So let's wait and see. You know, perhaps an announcement in the next few months. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, we
look forward to that. I suppose finally then, the only genre we haven't really covered is the futuristic racing game genre. Again, it's 3 main contenders. Obviously got Wipeout, Omega Collection, Formula Fusion, and the console release of Redout. Three games that are really sort of take you back to the original Wipeout. They're all trying to aspire to be the next Wipeout. It's a shame in a way that Wipeout Omega is coming out in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, Wipeout Omega will win out of the 3 because it's the most established brand. You know, it's not the best Wipeout game. There's elements to it that could be better, but you know, and I'm a bit disappointed it's not a new Wipeout game. But
we all are, I think. Yeah,
the kind of HD update I was talking about, where there's really very little that's been done to it, frankly. But when it comes to what I'm looking forward to, well, my gameplay experience on Redout I can't wait for you guys to play it. You know, I really enjoyed what I play, and I think if they can get it running really well on the consoles, you know, it's going to be one that's going to surprise people. It was a lot of fun to play, but the fact that it was an indie title meant it never really got the exposure it deserved, and you can see that from the views on the various videos. I mean, I made a few videos on it. Nobody was watching it, and I thought, such a shame nobody's watching this great game. You know, it's really disappointing when you know that it's a good product and people just aren't looking at it, but yet you'll have, you know, 1 million people watching a Need for Speed video, and yet here you have this indie game made for a fraction of the cost, but that has sublime handling. You know, it's something which is a shame. But I look forward to you guys playing it and seeing what the response is when people start seeing it running on the PlayStation. But I've no doubt they'll manage to get the frame rate right up there, and it'll be nice and smooth. And I'll be interested to see if it runs well on the Pro and the Scorpio, if it has upgrades for those as well. I'm sure it will. You look at a lot of titles. I mean, even Ride 2, you know, Ride 2, for example, is 1080p 30 on the standard console. It's 21p checkerboard rendering on the Pro. So I guess like things like that, you know, if they can get it running at 60 frames with the checkerboard on the Pro, stuff like that, it will look amazing. But yeah, there we are.
Again, just like the bike racing genre, it's great to see so many futuristic racing games you know, showing it, making a comeback. It's just a shame they're all doing it at the same time.
Yeah,
I think that's a bit of a theme at the moment. You know, last year we had the resurgence of the rally game genre, and arguably the bike racing genre. This year it's going to be the year of the futuristic racer, I think. And hopefully as we said earlier, the kind of Demolition Derby style game as well, genre as well. I think that's about it though for our 2017 preview. Lots and lots to look forward to this year, it has to be said. What better time really to be a fan of racing games with that lot to look forward to. Right, time to move on then to our Q&A of this week. Just going on to Facebook. This one comes from Marty Park. He says, will there be a Dirt Rally 2? Is there any news on it? It's funny you should say that, actually. Yeah, someone on Twitter asked something similar, and the official channel for Dirt Rally actually got back to us with a very teasing tweet. I'm just going to get it back up. Their response is, something may or may not be coming, and it may or may not be soon. Ooh. The suspense is just killing us.
Yeah. So I mean, worst case scenario, it's DLC, isn't it, for Dirt Rally? Best case scenario, I don't know, a sequel announced or something. But we're not expecting that, are we?
Yeah, we're in this funny position really, where it feels like it's too late for DLC for Dirt, but it feels too early for there to be a sequel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's the mind boggles. You know, I'm expecting a massive DLC update. For it to be this late, you know, it has to be massive to really make an impact.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because it could keep Dirt Rally going for another year.
Yeah.
If they release. I mean, it must be dying now because people have played the same content to death. And I know you say worst case scenario is it's DLC, but for a lot of people, that's probably the best case scenario that bought the game and want to play more.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, a really good DLC patch, you know, 2 more locations, 3 more rally course, you know, 4 more rally cross tracks. You know, and you've got something there that's a solid package. But is 2 locations enough? In a way, it almost needs like 4 more rally locations.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it needs to double
a lot more. You know,
the content. Yeah.
So it needs a lot if it's going to be engaging enough to drag everybody back. But it's no doubt it's still selling, and I think that audience would lap it up. You know, I think that the sell-through rate of DLC on Dirt Rally would be very high indeed. So it'd be in their interest to
exactly
release some quality to it.
Okay, next question. Tom Jenkinson says, he just says PSVR racing games.
PSVR racing games. Well, like you say, there's none so far. Well, there's Dirt obviously with Drive Club VR, which is a bit blurry. We're expecting a cut down version of Gran Turismo. And then other than that, well, not a clue really. It's all up in the air. I mean, it would be wrong to label potential upcoming games as VR if we don't know they're going to be VR. And unless a developer says they're going to support it, we don't know. And at the moment, no developers are officially supporting it. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Possibly got GT Sport, that's going to have some sort of VR compatibility. That's the only official one in the pipeline, to be honest.
Maybe Dirt Rally is going to add VR support,
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe WRC7 if it's Killerton, possibly.
Yeah.
And all these developers have been experimenting with VR, but it just takes so much time to put the resource into it. That's the trouble. It's
a time resource, and also, don't forget, they will have to cut the graphics down massively to get it running in VR. So, if a game already struggles at 60, bear in mind it's got to be locked at 90 frames a second. Yeah. You're going to lose something, pretty much everything on that. So, there is that.
That's it. Woody Wood says, "What are we going to be getting in Forza Motorsport 7 that's new?"
Dynamic weather.
No, yet, no idea.
Don't know. We don't know, do we? We're guessing dynamic weather because it's not been in there, and it should be by now. Its competitors will probably have it, so they need to have it in there.
Improved handling, I guess, overall.
Yeah, improved physics in terms of wheel physics in particular.
So that's the thing we know for sure at the moment is the improved wheel support from Fanatic. I guess we've already kind of covered that in depth. I should say as well, a lot of people have been asking what racing games we're looking forward to this year. Obviously, that's been the main theme of this podcast, so we've really already answered that question, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yi Long's posted us a question, but it's the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same question he asked us last time about our favourite top-down races.
Favourite top-down, yeah.
We answered that before.
We've been over that one, Micro Machine and all that,
Yeah. So also from Twitter, Billy Strange, who you might know from Inside Sim Racing as it happens, he contacted us asking, do you all prefer to have the cars unlocked right away, or do you like a traditional career mode where you unlock cars and disciplines?
Oh, that's a good question.
Interesting question, yeah.
Yeah.
You can mull over that one a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It depends on the game. I think if a game has a very straightforward structure and the cars are unlocked based on a relative experience, I think that it feels good to develop your skills as you move on. I like the idea of that. But I also like the idea of, so if there was a career mode where you unlock some cars, if there's an arcade mode or an unlock mode where you can test the cars, do single races and stuff like that, I also like that as well. So I liked an unlocked mode for single races and time trial. But when you do the career, if there are some special cars that you need to do the career to unlock, that's also good because it gives you, there might be a few choice cars that you need to go through the career mode, but it can never feel like a grind. I really dislike career modes where you have to do race after race after race and you're just grinding your way around to unlock cars. So if there's other ways to unlock the cars, like for example, if I said, right, I don't want to do the career mode, but I wouldn't mind racing 100 races in a single race mode or do 1,000 laps on the time trial, that if your experience points from those modes combines and still enables you to unlock those modes by playing the game you want to play, but by generating the experience from laps, then that works for me as well.
Yeah, I suppose for me, I feel like I need to have earned certain cars sometimes. I mean, Forza Horizon 3 is a good example of that. It just showers you with new cars all the time. You never really feel like you deserve it. But in saying that, I kind of liked how Project Cars went the other way and had everything unlocked. So I'm a bit conflicted in a way. Like I said, it depends on the game. It really does depend on the game.
Yeah, I mean, much like what Alan said, it's nice to have an arcade mode where you can jump into any car, any track, and then your career mode where you actually earn the cars. I love starting games like Gran Turismo in the little crappy Japanese box cars because you do have an attachment to those because you stick with those cars, you tune them up, and you race as far as you can race with that car before you move on. Or if you're anything like me, you do at least. And it's nice to have that attachment to those early cars. And Ride 2, I had a slight attachment as well to those early bikes, and it's nice to have that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's one of those things that seems to be going away a bit more these days. And it's nice to earn the cars, isn't it? You really appreciate them when you earn them. And so I do actually like that sort of aspect of the game. But it all depends on the game. It depends on how it's been implemented. Gran Turismo 6, certain events, you couldn't access because you didn't have the right car. And often when you win that event, when you eventually do get the right car, they give you a prize car. It's actually a car that would have been good for that event to start with. And you think, why did they do that? So it all depends on how easy it is to get the cars, I guess, for the certain tracks. And, it's a very complicated
sometimes
question.
I overcomplicate things. Sometimes I want to go into a race on those types of games and it says, sorry, your car isn't eligible. So okay, I'll get into another car. Sorry, your car isn't eligible. But this is supposed to be eligible. Oh, it's upgraded because it's got that wing on it, which then makes it uneligible. Oh, bloody hell. So now I've got to reduce the build and stuff like that. And I just give me the car. Just give me the car. I just want to get the grind done, get these bloody easy races out of the way, and then I can move on. So there is that sometimes. It's a bit frustrating where you spend like 10 minutes trying to get a race going, find the right car to fit that bill.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, one last question then from Alec Heverington, also on Twitter. He asks us, do you have any more news on Test Drive Unlimited 3?
No.
In a word, no.
No, nothing.
We don't even know who's developing it yet.
No, exactly. That just says it all, really, doesn't it? But the moment we get news, you can be rest assured it'll be on the website because I'm absolutely bonkers over this game. So I'm going to be, listening out very closely.
Ear to the ground. And as soon as there's any news, it'll be on the website.
Yeah, exactly. Right, I think that's it then for this podcast. Unless anyone else has anything else to add.
No, main thing I'll just say, viewers, and listeners, do sign up to the mailing list because at some point we'll be starting our newsletter, and that will have lots of other information in it, as well as competitions as well for the newsletter followers. So do sign up to that on the website, and that would be great.
Right, I guess that's it from all of us then. Do keep giving us your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them in next week's episodes. Until then, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye.
And I know that obviously Microsoft and